Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois Season 4, and this is going to be my review for Episode 8, the third last ever episode of the show, otherwise entitled Sharp Dressed Man. And of course, spoiler alert for everything that happens in this episode, because we're going to be talking about everything, well not everything, that's gone overboard, but all the major stuff and interesting stuff that happens in this episode, which of course is going to contain spoilers. And yeah, so go away if you've not watched it, but of course if you have watched the episode, which makes a lot of sense. Why would you click on a review if you had not? But if you have, let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this episode, what you love, what you hate, overall, just thoughts, I guess, and opinions and any theories and predictions moving forward into next week's episode, episode 9, but I guess specifically, the finality portions of the season. Yeah, let me know your thoughts down there. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, you enjoy the episode, drop a like. Takes 2 seconds. So of course, last episode, the major thing going from it into this one, because Lex Luthor isn't in last week's episode, but the presence and his effect is heavily, well, present, I guess, in that episode. But we do have Superman exposing his identity after essentially having to expose it in the Smallville diner, but it's just pretty much like this thing of like, well, Lex is going to keep on doing this. He's got this, control over me, I guess, or this little slice of power that he can use over me. Let me try and take that back. And he does that by, exposing his identity through via the Daily Planet, who gets the exclusives. Now the world knows that Clark Kent is Superman, as well as a bit of his backstory as to who he is. But overall, this episode, I think, self-contained, was a really fun episode, but it was clearly a setup episode for these final two. Like, it was pretty much lining all of its ducks in a row, and then episode 9 and 10 we're going to see some bullets go off, if you want to put it, though it still had some ramifications for stuff that we'd seen previously in the season and how maybe it plays into the final 2 episodes as well. But it was also a bit of like just knocking stuff out that they hadn't done previously, if that makes sense. But we'd seen the trailer and stuff, and there was like, there's going to be this like debate between Lois and Lex, and the debate isn't like a massive part of the episode, but it's definitely like the core of the episode. Like, everything is like circled around it, though the actual debate itself is very small within the episode as a whole. And this episode, of course, involved a fun, well, not even cameo, just I saw people saying cameo. It was definitely like a guest role in the episode as well, and it was actually, everyone was wrong. It wasn't who we thought they would be playing, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But we start off the episode with the new look Lex Luthor, which wasn't a surprise in the episode because we'd seen it in not only the trailer for this episode, but also the mid-season trailer as well. But he has a new suit. It's been tailored. I think we see him like with the tailor as it's getting finished up. But also he's nice and clean shaven. So he's looking like your classic Lex Luthor in the comics. And throughout the episode, because I won't mention it, I didn't write it down in my notes for like when it's relevant, I guess, in the debate and stuff. You can tell he's, by his actions as well, that this is a complete disguise. Like, this is a facade. This is not Lex Luthor, despite it looking like your classic Lex Luthor in the comics. Like, this is not this version of Lex, but he's using, I guess, your classic like design and look of Lex as this design or disguise, might I say, for what he wants to achieve throughout this episode, which I thought was really smart. But we do see that the Kent home is now under protection, or at least a bit of like surveillance from the government based off, the thing that came out last episode, because now not only people just know that Superman has a normal life and does stuff, but they know that specifically he is Clark Kent and he's from Smallville. So people are like, well, it's like a tourist attraction now. But we also have Lois getting a checkup to see if she still has cancer. And this is what I meant by like, they're sort of like addressing stuff from previous in the show to sort of give it a bit of a bow. If this wasn't the final season, I don't know if this specifically would have happened. It might have been like a checkup, but I don't know if they would have like tied a bow on it, because I don't think we're going to get anything in regards to the cancer thing moving forward. But they do some stuff with it, which we'll bring up in a second as well, because it relates to one of the bigger reveals in the episode, or at least in regards to pushing the narrative forward. But John Henry and Nat, they're in this episode. They play a pretty big role, and they are swamped with DoD work. Of course, before General Lane died, they were brought into the DoD to work, and they are heading up Squad K, which isn't just this random thing. It's a weird one, because in the comics, from what I know, like I don't know if John Henry's in Squad K. He might be, but like it's like a different sort of like, it's not meant to be this like necessarily like it's like definitely like a government sort of thing, if that makes sense. But it's a bit of a deep cut, I guess you could say. Like, I don't know if it's like overly relevant nowadays in the comics and stuff. It's like from like a while ago, I think, but not like a while ago, but like at least a couple of decades, I think. But yeah, Squad K is I guess somewhat of a deep cut. But then again, a lot of the deep cuts that we see especially like specifically from the Superman comics, seem to be from like late 90s, early 2000s comics and stuff like that. But they do get an alert of a car that's flipped over, I think they said on the thing, and they're covering for Superman because they know that Clark's got to take Lois to the cancer hospital, or just the hospitals, or the medical center and stuff like that. So they go check it out, and we get this guy, and I was like, this guy is like, because the scene ends really quickly, so I was really suspect of it very quickly, because if you've watched, obviously, like the guy that's in the car, who was just this random guy with glasses that we're led to believe at the beginning, he's in like Deadpool 2. He was in like a recurring role in Riverdale. He's not just a random, like he's like a working Vancouver actor who pops up in a lot of stuff. I didn't get the actor's name. I should have noted it down. When he was there, I was like, that's weird, because at this point, I'm still under the presumption, I think a lot of people were, that Tom Cavanagh is playing Milton Fine. That's what I think most people are on the presumption of. But he's in the car, and I'm like, that dude is like not just like some random like half a second scene actor. Like if you're going to bring him into an episode, he's probably going to be like a decent sized role, or at least have a couple of scenes where he's talking back and forth with people. So I was really suspect of it at the time, but I thought, hey, maybe they cut his scenes or something, or maybe he's like a Smallville resident we'll bump into. I don't know. So I put it to the side, but my suspicions were somewhat raised after that very, very quick like one-line scene that he had there. But we do actually see that like the effects of the reveal from last episode with Superman revealing his identity, where Jordan and Jonathan are celebrities, not just within Smallville, but when people are coming to the town, they're like looking out for everyone. They're looking out for Jordan and Jonathan, and like they seem to know that like they were going to the movies, which was like, who leaked that information that they're going to the movies? Maybe like they booked an online ticket and some hacker or something. So I thought that was really random, but like, yeah, they're now celebrities and like they're the Beatles or something like that. Is that a bit of a dated reference, I guess, but we'll go with it anyway. But Lois does get good news. Like the treatments are over now for the cancer, which is really good. But the celebrations, unfortunately, are cut short. There's not going to be any bazoombas at home, unfortunately, because when they're leaving, we do see Lex go on Godfrey, or hashtag Godfrey, hosted by Gordon, aka Glorious Godfrey, which is played by Tom Cavanagh. Now, in this interview, he's like exposing Lois and saying that like she's been targeting him, and it's almost like borderline defamation through all the stuff she's done in her journalistic career, because pretty much anything that bad that comes out in the press in regards to Lex Luthor either specifically comes from Lois Lane, or at least it's rooted to Lois Lane and her journalism and her stories and stuff like that. But the cool thing around this is that Gordon Godfrey, or Gordon Glorious Godfrey, was portrayed by, or acted or played by Tom Cavanagh. This was the role he was playing. Now, this is a character. It's like Gordon Godfrey, or Glorious Godfrey, is a character that's played, there's like different adaptations of it and stuff like that. He was in like the animated Justice League thing, and in that sort of world, he is just like this TV reporter, but then there's other like takes on him and stuff like that. But that is a deep cut, but he fits it perfectly. Now I know exactly what Todd Helbing was saying when he said like the character was the perfect, or and I think Brent Fletcher, the other showrunner, they said it together, where he was like the perfect fit for this character, and they wish they had more of him. Like, imagine if we just had like a bit of a side story, if the show wasn't ending, like you can almost have a thing where it's a bit of a war between like Gordon Godfrey and Lois Lane and stuff, even if it's like a subplot for a couple of episodes, or even if it's more of like just like a, he's like the gossip, like TMZ side thing, and Lois is trying to portray like real journalism, and he's just more of this like, you know, whatever you want to say, like, you know, he's just like the gossipy type, you know. So I think that would have been an interesting thing if we had more of the show, and I can understand what the showrunners were saying when they said they wish they were able to use him more within the show, and they could have done like, you know, more storylines and stuff like that. Now I 100% understand that based off what we saw in this episode. But essentially Lex, through the Godfrey show, wants to debate Lois and reveal the apparent truth. And essentially this is just trying to manipulate the audience. You know, Lex is a manipulator, and it's alongside Amanda McCoy and stuff, because he knows that like she can't really prove a lot of the stuff that she's going to claim. We, the audience, we know it's 100% true, but it's not like there's like substantial evidence to, you know, prove Lex wrong or prove Lex did certain things. So Lex has the higher ground in regards to that situation. But it's just about whether you can, you know, push it forward and portray it in that manner. Now we do see Smallville once again swamped with the Superman enthusiasts, but this is having a bit of a downside, like the celebrity with Candace actually wanting to break up with Jonathan, but also we do see some of the manipulation on the Lex side because Otis Grisham, which was going to be like Lois's like main sort of like evidence and like backing up thing potentially, has apparently killed himself, which of course did not happen. It's a cover up completely, and that puts a bit of a, puts a bit of a pickle in the situations in regards to what Lois wants to do. And despite Clark's worries, Lois wants to go and debate Lex. He's like, hey, just write an article. Lois is actually writing an article at that point as a bit of a rebuttal and use the paper and her like prime form or her prime way of communicating and work to hit back at Lex. But she decides to go on the program and debate him, which Clark doesn't want. I was like, you're stepping right into Lex's trap there, and we'll see how that plays out as we get deeper into the episode. Now, we do officially get to meet Milton Fine, and it was the person John Henry and Natalie saved from the car crash earlier on. And I was like, okay, that didn't surprise me too much when that was revealed, especially after the Tom Cavanaugh reveal that, he was, Gordon Godfrey and not Milton Fine. So I was like, well, it must have been the dude in the car. And we see that. And he is prepping something. Now, I wasn't too sure exactly what he was prepping because I was assuming it was the suit, but I was like, well, John Henry still has the suit, but we find out exactly what he was prepping a bit later into the episode. Now, of course, Milton Fine is meant to be like a future, like a human version of Brainiac, and they do a bit of a twist on it. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get anything crazy, but there's certain things in the episode which hint at like the Brainiac connections in the comics. Now, one thing that was really interesting was Lex being really uncomfortable with the surroundings of this debate, and he's like essentially what we'd seen previously in the season, but I think we really got like almost like an anxiety sort of thing of it. But it was like his lack of control in this situation, his lack of control in the debate. He's not the one coordinating the debate. There's a middleman in the form of Gordon Godfrey, but there's all these other people around. He's in a situation he's not really used to, and I really like the fact that they did that. And Amanda McCoy, you could see the control that she has over Lex. She was like, no, you are doing this. Like, you easily could have seen Lex just walk out the room and not do it, but that just shows the influence and control that Amanda McCoy has on him in regards to all of this. So I thought that scene was really, really good. Now, one thing that was really setting up, I think, the series finale and potentially a flash forward for this season in the series finale, I guess, was Clark getting a checkup, almost as if he's going to his doctor at John Henry's, and we find out that his body is not regenerating, and it's like the source that they used was his ears, and his powers are also fading. They're fading slowly. It's not like it's a battery. He was on 100% yesterday and he was on 80% today, but they are slowly fading, and eventually they are going to go. We don't know when they're eventually going to go, and that goes for the same with just his body as a whole. His body now is pretty much aging just like how General Lane's was, because he's now got his heart. So this really does put an interesting thing on how the show ends and what we see going forward. I know a lot of people think they're going to kill Superman. I don't think they are. I highly doubt they would have started the season with the whole Death of Superman arc, and then we wrap up with another Death of Superman, unless it's a flash forward and it's like him when he's actually like proper old, like 90, 95 years old or something like that. But once again, we'll see that when it comes to the finale. There's no point overthinking that at this point, but they're definitely setting it up with that whole thing there. But in regards to that Candace thing with Jonathan does go to Candace to try and sort things out, and it does work out. Jonathan's able to get through to her, but once again, it just shows the effect that having that celebrity and it's sort of the reason Jonathan's getting like a first-hand experience of why Clark was trying to keep that a secret, because he knew not only the hoopla that it brings, but also how it can push people away as well. Now, the Lex versus Lois debate. It was a pretty even debate, at least if you were like viewing it as a person on TV. It was pretty even based off what Lois could prove, based off I guess what she could just say and didn't have. But then of course, Lex pulls a couple of trump cards where he has footage of Clark bashing him in downtown Smallville and stuff like that. And also one of the trump cards that Lois would have had, which is the Otis Grisham thing, well, he's dead. So she can't pull that out, can she? But Lex got a bit too, over cocky. He was very cocky, thinking Lois had, nothing to impact him. But Lois brings up his daughter. And, Lex didn't have really good poker face in that situation. If you were watching and they showed him, you'd be like, hold on, he's reacted to that in a pretty interesting way. So she does bring up his daughter. And, if she got brought into the situation, if she wanted to, then I don't know if Lex would be able to cover that up too much. But while this is all going on, both steel suits are hacked by Milton Fine, and they're sent to kill Superman as a backup for the debate not going how Amanda wanted it. It wasn't going how she wanted it. She's like, well, I'm just going to commence it now. And at least it puts a bit of a distraction and sort of like ends it with Lex a bit up, because that footage was shown. Lois couldn't really support any of her arguments with actual evidence and stuff like that. Though we know it's right, she just couldn't do it. So as a neutral person watching at home on the couch eating some, I don't know, we'll say some caramel flavored popcorn or something like that, she just, wouldn't be able to sway you too much. But Lex might have you on his side for a bit. But we do see that like the steel suit goes onto John Henry. So he's in the suit while it's hacked. And we do see like the little green skulls really hinting at the Brainiac aspect as it's hacked. I don't know if we'll see more of that in like next week's episode or the finale and stuff, but we see in that episode hinting at the Brainiac aspect from the comics. But the Superman vs. Steel fight was really cool. Of course, we also had the Natalie's Starlight suit, which didn't have her in it. It just went solo. It was just almost like a ghost was in it. But that went to take on the Superboys. But with the Superman vs. Steel fight, it was really giving me some season 1 feels, because of course, like in the pilot episode and some, we had them fighting. So that was a really like a bit of a flashback moment within the episode, despite it not actually being a flashback. But I thought that was cool. The Superboys versus the Starlight thing, it was pretty like the more intense fight, I guess you could say. But John Henry is ditched out of his suit. Milton finds like, okay, I can do better than this. So he pretty much just hacks the suit, makes John Henry fall out of it. And it goes back to, I guess, presumably his place. But Natalie's suit is completely destroyed. The Superboys have to destroy it so it, doesn't kill everyone there, which involved Natalie herself as well as Candace. So I don't know what that means. I'd assume that means at least Natalie's not going to be doing anything physically in regards to like a superhero aspect in the remaining 2 episodes. The only one that could potentially is John if he gets his suit back. But at least at this moment, it's just Superman and the Superboys versus Lex with his super suit. So we're not going to have any sort of help outside of the family, at least from what we can tell. And it wouldn't obviously it wouldn't surprise me too much if potentially there's a way to give Lex a bit of an upper hand. I would be very, very surprised if that suit is not, influenced by kryptonite in some way, just to give the bit of upper hand to Lex. But we'll wait and see. Now the debate ends when like Superman goes to fight John Henry. He goes to fight John Henry's suit. So I was gonna say he goes to fight off Steel, but it's not really Steel. It's just John Henry's suit that's been hacked. And we do see Gordon Godfrey's side with Lex in the coverage, because where the debate ended, at least Lex was showing stuff on TV. So Lois is seen as like not a complete liar, but there's just a question mark on her. So I'm interested to see in the next 2 episodes, I guess maybe specifically in next week's episode, if Lois tries to redeem herself there a bit. But maybe that's something that happens in the finale where maybe Lex gets exposed again. We'll wait and see what happens there at the very least. Now, one thing which throughout the entire season, like there's just been, like, you got to be honest, there's been some sexual tension when it comes to Lex and Amanda, and they finally kiss. I was wondering, like, are they getting it on? Like, they're just not confirming it on the show, but that was the first kiss, I guess, between the two. So at least they confirmed that, and now they're like a power couple. But also I think that really now has Amanda fully pushed into the Lex side of things, because when we met her throughout the season, she was like, oh, okay, she works for Luthor Corp. She was like, a trusted person that works at Luthor Corp by Lex, but they hadn't really been around each other, at least for like the past 2 or going on 2 decades roughly. So I was like, is she like got a bit of innocence around her in regards to like she doesn't necessarily know what Lex is doing? No, she's full in on what Lex is doing now, like full in. So she's as responsible for anything that happens going forward as Lex is. In the past, no, Lex was a bit more responsible, but now going forward, yeah, Amanda's as bad as Lex. So no sympathy for whatever happens to Amanda going forward now. But along with like the suits not being in their possession anymore, John Henry and Natalie have a new rival, and that's Milton Fine. They don't know it's Milton Fine. They obviously don't know it was the person that they saved from that car crash as well. So it will be interesting to see their impact in regards to that and how they go about trying to, like, I guess, get back at Milton in whatever way they can, because they were like, okay, they also reference their Lex Luthor from their Earth, like he's a bit more of a sciencey guy, but the one on this Earth is not. So, like, that's how they know that it wasn't Lex that did all this. So they know there's another person involved, and that's, if they're in next week's episode, or at least maybe they do it behind the scenes and we see them in the finale, that's probably what they're going to be looking into. But we can assume that, I guess, Milton Fine is going to be in the remaining 2 episodes, or at least probably next week's episode. You have to assume so based on how this episode ends and what they set up. So maybe there's more interesting things that will happen with him. But the final scene of the episode, or the final like main scene, I guess you could say, is Clark telling the family on what he learned from John Henry. And he does bring up his power issues and everything like that. So you can see the family's very emotional. I do wonder if there's going to be like a handing of the baton in regards to like, I can't use my powers to save the world. It's up to you two boys to do it. I don't think we're going to get that until like right at the end of the series finale. And then maybe that's where we jump into a flash forward if we're going to get it. But I don't think they're going to like hammer down too much on that. And like, next week's episode or even most of the finale. I think it's going to be something towards the end, though I'm sure there'll be some struggles that Clark faces due to what's happening to him in these remaining 2 episodes. But the final scene of the episode is definitely setting up a big final 2 episodes that we got coming our way in the next fortnight. Not the game, next 2 weeks. I notice a lot of Americans don't use the term fortnight, apparently. Don't know why. But anyway, maybe you do. Maybe I'm wrong. But whenever I say fortnight, people go, what the hell's that? I'm not playing a video game. There's no golden sky down there. Anyway, that was a tangent. I was just blabbing on then. But we see the end scene and Lex has the upgraded suit, or Milton Fine has the suit and it's upgrading. We don't know specifically what's being put in there, but I guess it's just hooked up to his computer system and it's putting in some new nifty things. I do wonder if there's going to be like some like weapons and stuff like that. And I'd be very, very surprised if there's not some like kryptonite, you know, influence in some way, whether there's like, it's just slightly embedded in the suit. So whenever Superman gets near it, it weakens him a bit, or just like kryptonite weapons. I'm not too sure, but you have to think there'd be something in that suit that's got some kryptonite on it. I mean, just because it just makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? But yeah, overall, this episode was a really good episode on its own, but it was, you know, had its own individual storyline, but it was obviously planting those scenes and lining those ducks up in a row for these final 2 episodes. And I think it did everything it needed to do, as well as even just addressing like Lois's cancer, which they probably won't have to address in the final 2 episodes because they tied somewhat of a bow on it. And even maybe even the Jonathan Candace relationship and stuff like that, we might not have to do too much there because Candace is now accepted, like, I guess, like the baggage that Jonathan now has. So yeah, great episode. But I'm expecting the final 2 episodes to be even better, just because of all the setup that this episode did. So, cannot wait. It's a bit sad, but I cannot wait. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this episode. What you love, what you hate, theories and predictions moving forward. Did the Milton Fine casting surprise you? We're like, oh, I thought it was going to be Tom Cavanaugh. But it wasn't. But I actually like the guy that's playing Milton Fine. I actually think he fits it more. He seems like a, well, Brainiac, doesn't he? And did you like Tom Cavanaugh's guest role? Do you think he suited the role? Do you think he was fun there? I think he was really, really good. And I think he fit what he needed to do. And there's also like a bit of Eobard Thawne like cockiness in there and just like playing around, which I thought was fun. But yeah, he was a great part. But let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.